Evan Hale had walked the station's inner ring so many times that his feet usually carried him without thinking. The place was a wheel of light and metal drifting between stars, a neutral crossroads where ships arrived like slow-moving islands. Every corridor had signs. Every sign had translations. Every translation had little mistakes that no one noticed until someone like Evan noticed them too late. He was not a soldier or a diplomat. He was the kind of worker the station needed so the important people could pretend the station ran on dignity and speeches. Evan tracked system faults, updated transit maps, checked access permissions, and filed reports that no one read unless something broke badly. On that shift, something small had broken. One of the routing panels near corridor J19 kept flipping between two languages, and the door icons kept swapping their meaning. The maintenance tickets described it in different ways. Door mislabeling, cultural hazard, wrong glyph set loaded, and one that simply said, "Please fix before somebody does something dumb." Evan had sighed at that last one because it sounded personal. He reached J19 with a toolkit tucked under his arm and a slim pad in his hand. The corridor was quieter than most. The lighting was softer, with a pale blue tint that made the station feel like it was underwater. The air carried a faint scent, like clean stone after rain. He stepped up to the panel and tapped the screen. It showed the same door symbol twice, one above the other, as if the system could not decide which one was correct. The left side was a common station icon for service passage. The right side was something else, an elegant curve and a dot with a fine line beneath it. The translator tried to render it and failed, then tried again and failed again. Evan frowned. "You're trying your best," he muttered, more to himself than the machine. A door waited beside the panel. It looked like any other door until he stared at it long enough to see the differences. The seam was almost invisible. The surface was not metal but something smooth and dark, like polished charcoal. It reflected light in a way that made it hard to judge its depth. Evan searched his pad for the local map overlay. The map showed a service corridor behind that door, but the data timestamp was old. The system note warned that some sections had been remapped for diplomatic housing. That was normal. The station changed constantly, like a living thing that refused to stop growing. He should have called to confirm. He should have done the slow, correct process. Send a request, wait for clearance, verify the updated map, then open the door. But the maintenance tickets were stacking up, and he had been on shift for 12 hours, and the station had a way of making even careful people feel like they were always catching up. He pressed the access pad. A soft chime responded, almost polite. The door parted without sound. Warm air flowed out. It was not hot, but it carried a comfort that station corridors rarely had. Evan stepped through automatically, expecting to see conduit lines and a narrow space filled with service panels. Instead, he found himself in a room that did not look like the station at all. The ceiling rose in a gentle curve, higher than standard. The walls were a pale, matte color that looked like bone under moonlight. Light came from nowhere obvious, as if the room itself was glowing. There were no harsh corners. Everything was rounded and calm. A narrow strip of running water moved along one wall in a shallow channel, making a quiet sound like distant wind. Evan froze. In the center of the room stood a woman. She was not human. Her shape was close enough to unsettle him. 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso and head, but the proportions were slightly different, the lines smoother, the posture too still. Her skin was a muted gray-blue. Her hair was long and pale, falling in a straight curtain down her back. Around her neck hung a simple band of dark material with a small, thin object attached like a pendant. She looked at him. Her eyes were large and dark, with a faint, reflective sheen. No anger showed in her face, but no welcome either. She did not move quickly. She simply turned her head a fraction, as if adjusting her view. Evan's throat tightened. His mind rushed through a list of possible disasters: private quarters, diplomatic housing, sacred space, legal trouble, station authority. Embarrassment so intense it could cause physical damage. "I'm sorry," he blurted because his brain gave him nothing else. This is the wrong door. I'm station systems. I was fixing a panel. I didn't mean to." He took a step backward, aiming for the doorway. His heel touched the threshold. The alien woman did not raise her voice. She did not speak at all. She lifted one hand, not in warning, but in a slow, deliberate motion that made his instincts stop. Then she turned slightly and reached for a control strip on the wall beside the doorway. The door slid closed, not fast, not violent, just smooth and final like a curtain falling. Evan stared at the sealed seam where the exit had been, his breath caught. He lifted his hand toward the door, unsure whether to touch it, unsure whether touching it would be worse. The woman remained where she was. Her gaze stayed on him, steady and unreadable. Evan forced his hands to lower. He remembered a basic rule from every station culture briefing. When you enter unknown territory, do not act like you own it. Do not make sudden moves. Do not grab. Do not demand. He swallowed and tried again, softer. I'm Evan Hale, human, I'm sorry. I'll leave as soon as you open the door. The woman's eyes did not change, but something in her posture shifted, almost too subtle to catch. She angled her head a little more, as if listening for something beyond his words. Evan realized she might not have a translator active. Or perhaps her translator did not like his accent. Or perhaps she understood perfectly and was choosing silence. He took a slow breath and looked around without turning his head too quickly. There was furniture, but not like station furniture. A low platform near the water channel held folded cloth. A shelf along the far wall held objects that looked like carved stone, each one unique, each one placed with careful spacing. A tall plant, if it was a plant, grew from a basin with dark soil. Its leaves were thin and long like green ribbons. No screens, no obvious devices. Evan's pad in his hand felt suddenly loud, like a wrong instrument in a quiet room. He hesitated, then slowly set it on the floor beside his foot, like he was placing down something sharp. I'm not here to take anything, he said, speaking slowly. I only came because the door panel outside is wrong. People might keep walking in. That's my fault. I should have checked better. The alien woman took one step forward. Evan's muscles tensed, but he held still. Her movement was controlled, almost graceful, with no wasted motion. She stopped at a distance that felt like a line, not too close, not too far. She lifted her hand again. Her fingers were slightly longer than human fingers, and the joints moved with a smoothness that looked practiced, like a dancer who had learned every possible angle of balance. She pointed at him, then pointed to the floor in front of him, then made a small circle in the air. Evan blinked. You want me to stay there? She did not nod, she did not speak. She simply held his gaze. Evan's heart beat hard, but not from fear alone. There was something else, the strange pressure of being studied, like he had become part of an experiment without realizing it. He nodded once gently. Okay, I'll stay. He kept his hands visible and relaxed. He stood as if waiting for a supervisor, which was a feeling he knew well. The silence stretched. The running water whispered along the wall. Somewhere deeper in the station, a distant hum vibrated through the structure, but it was muted here, softened by the room's design. The alien woman watched him for so long that Evan started to think time had slowed. Then, very slowly, she moved toward a shelf and lifted a small object, a cup, perhaps, made of dark, translucent material. She walked to the water channel, dipped the cup, and brought it back. She extended it toward Evan. Evan hesitated. In human culture, offering water was kindness. In some station cultures, it was a test. In others, it was a contract. In some, refusing was an insult. In some, accepting was worse. He chose the least arrogant option. He pointed to himself, then to the cup. For me, she held it steady. Evan accepted it with both hands, careful not to touch her. The cup felt cool. The water inside looked clear. He lifted it slightly and waited just a moment, watching her face for any sign. She did not stop him. He took a small sip. The water tasted like water, but cleaner, with a faint mineral hint that reminded him of cold mountain streams he had never actually seen, only watched in old Earth videos. He lowered the cup. Thank you. The woman's eyes lingered on his mouth, then on the cup, then on his hands. She stepped back. She seemed to relax by a tiny amount, the way a person relaxes when a fragile thing does not break. Evan felt himself breathe again. He looked at the door seam. I'd like to leave when you're ready. I really am sorry. I can make a report. I can. He stopped, because he realized he was talking like a human trying to fix discomfort by filling space with words. That might not help here. It might even make things worse. He tried something else. He bowed his head slightly, not too deep, not too dramatic, just a quiet sign of respect. The alien woman did not respond with the same gesture, but she watched it closely, as if recording it. Evan placed the cup down gently on the floor near his pad. He did not want to walk deeper into the room without permission. He stayed near where Haya had indicated. Minutes passed, then more. Evan's mind started to build stories he did not want. What if the door had sealed because of a security protocol? What if she had triggered a lock? What if station security was already on the other side preparing paperwork, fines, or worse? But the quiet remained. No pounding, no alarms, no voices over a loudspeaker, nothing. He dared to ask carefully, Is someone coming? The woman looked at him, then slowly moved to the door control strip again. Her fingers hovered over it, but she did not open it. Instead, she pressed a different section, and a faint shimmer appeared in the air between them. A holographic symbol formed, simple and elegant. It looked like a door icon, but with a line across it, then a second symbol beside it. A circle, then a smaller circle within it. Evan stared. No leaving until evaluation? The woman's gaze sharpened. She pointed at the second symbol, the circle within circle, then pointed at Evan's chest. Me, Evan said softly. You're evaluating me? She held her hand still, then lowered it. Evan felt a strange mix of embarrassment and relief. Evaluation sounded better than punishment. Not great, but better. He tried to think like a systems analyst because that was safer than thinking like a scared person. Systems behaved in patterns. Cultures did too in their own way. This might be a ritual or a protocol. He nodded, accepting what he could not change. Okay. I'll cooperate. The alien woman turned and walked to the low platform near the water channel. She sat folding her legs with controlled grace. Her back was straight. Her hands rested lightly on her knees. She looked at him again. Evan felt like he should sit too, but he did not want to assume. He slowly lowered himself to the floor where he stood, sitting with his legs bent and his hands resting on his thighs. He kept his posture open, not slouched, not aggressive. They sat facing each other across a few meters of smooth floor. The woman's face remained calm, but Evan began to notice small details. Her breathing was slower than his. Her attention did not drift. When he blinked, she blinked a moment later as if sinking. He wondered if her species had a different sense of time, or if she was reading him the way humans read body language, looking for signs of threat, lies, or instability. Evan decided to offer what he would want in her position, clarity. I came in by mistake, he said quietly. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to spy. I was trying to stop other people from making the same mistake, and I failed at the first step. He lifted his hands, palms slightly outward, a universal sign on the station for empty hands. I don't have weapons. I only have tools for panels and wires. My pad is there. You can check it if you want. The alien woman's eyes flicked toward the pad, then back to him. She did not move to take it. She did not seem interested in objects. She seemed interested in him. Evan tried another angle. I understand if you're upset, if closing the door is your way of saying I crossed a line. I get it. He paused. But I'm willing to make it right. Tell me what you need. He did not know if she understood the words, but he thought she might understand the intent. His voice was steady now because his fear had started to turn into something else, responsibility. The alien woman reached up and touched the band at her neck, the small pendant. She pressed it lightly. A soft tone sounded, and then a voice came out of nowhere, not from her mouth but from the air itself. The voice was mechanical but clear with a gentle rhythm. Human, name. Evan's eyes widened. Evan Hale. Purpose. I was fixing a station panel, Evan said quickly. The door symbol outside is wrong. It led me here. The air voice paused as if processing. Intent. Evan swallowed. This felt like a test that required honest answers. He chose the simplest truth. To correct an error, to prevent harm, to go back to my work. Another pause. The alien woman's face remained still, but Evan sensed her listening closely. The air voice spoke again. You acknowledge fault. Yes, Evan said immediately. I should have confirmed clearance. I didn't. That's on me. The woman's eyes held his for a long time. Then she blinked slowly. The air voice said, You remain calm. Evan let out a tiny breath he had not realized he was holding. I'm trying. Silence returned. The holographic shimmer faded. The woman stood. Evan stood too, but not abruptly. He followed her pace. She walked toward the shelf with the carved stones. She lifted one, held it out, then drew it back as if showing it to him without offering it. The stone was smooth, with fine lines etched across its surface. The air voice returned, softer. This is threshold record. You crossed, door closed, measure begins. Evan blinked. Measure? The woman's eyes stayed on him. Her expression was not cruel. It was almost curious, like she had expected a monster and found something confusing instead. Evan nodded slowly. Okay, what do I do? The woman lifted her hand, pointed toward the door, then pointed toward the floor between them, then made the same small circle gesture again. Evan understood it now. Stay within this space. Do not try to leave. The circle was a boundary, a behavior constraint. He lifted his hands in surrender, not dramatic, just clear. I won't force the door. I'll wait. The alien woman, Salith, though he did not know her name yet, stood very still for a moment, and Evan had the strange feeling that she was deciding something important. Then she walked toward the door control strip and pressed a different section. A faint chime sounded. Not an alarm, more like a notification. Evan's pad lit up where it lay, receiving a station ping through its network link. He did not grab it. He only looked at it from where he stood. Salith turned her head slightly, watching to see if he would rush for it. Evan stayed still. After a long second, Salith pressed her pendant again. The air voice spoke, this time with a different phrasing. External notification sent. No enforcement requested. Evan's eyebrows lifted. You told the station, but you didn't call security. Salith's gaze rested on him, steady as stone and just as quiet. Evan felt something loosen in his chest. Not safety exactly, but a chance. Thank you, he said, and meant it. The door remained closed. The room remained calm. But Evan understood with a clear certainty that made his skin prickle that this was only the beginning of whatever had started when he stepped through the wrong threshold. And the strangest part was not the closed door. The strangest part was that she had looked at him like he was a question she had never been allowed to ask. Time did not move the way Evan expected it to after that. Minutes stretched, then folded back on themselves. The room stayed the same, soft light, quiet water, smooth walls, but Evan became more aware of every small thing. His own breathing. The way his shoulders tensed without him telling them to. The way Salith stood near the door, not blocking it with her body, but with her presence. She did not watch him constantly. Instead, she observed in intervals like someone checking a reading on a screen. Her attention would settle on him, then drift away, then return. Each time it returned, Evan felt it like a gentle pressure. He stayed where he was. Not because he was ordered to, but because leaving the marked space felt wrong. The boundary she had shown him was not drawn on the floor, yet it existed clearly in his mind. Evan finally lowered himself to sit again, slowly, making sure she saw every movement. He rested his hands on his knees and waited. Salith moved first. She walked toward the water channel and knelt beside it. With careful motions, she adjusted a small flow control, making the stream quieter. Then she took a thin cloth from the platform and dipped part of it into the water. She wrung it out, then wiped her hands as if completing a small ritual. Evan watched, unsure if this was meant for him or simply something she would have done anyway. He chose not to interrupt. When she stood again, she did not return to her original place. Instead, she walked a slow circle around him, staying outside the invisible boundary she had set. Her steps were silent. Evan resisted the urge to turn his head too quickly. He kept his gaze forward, letting his eyes move instead. He felt like an object being examined from every angle. At last, she stopped in front of him. She pressed the pendant at her neck again. The air voice returned, clearer now, its tone slightly warmer. Human Evan Hale. You respond to error with compliance. Evan blinked. I try to. Salith's eyes flicked to the pendant, then back to him, as if confirming the translation. Why? The air voice asked. The question caught Evan off guard. He had expected procedural questions. Name, job. Clearance level, not why. He took a moment before answering because this felt important. Because mistakes happen, he said slowly. And if you don't admit them, they usually get worse. Someone else gets hurt or the system breaks more. Salith's gaze sharpened. She tilted her head slightly, an expression Evan was starting to recognize as interest. The air voice continued. You accept disadvantage without force. Evan gave a small, uncertain smile. I guess fighting the situation wouldn't help. I don't know your rules, you do. There was a pause. The pendant made a faint sound, almost like a hum adjusting its frequency. You do not attempt exit, the voice said. Evan glanced at the door, then back at Salith. You asked me not to, I agreed. You could attempt, the voice replied. Evan shrugged gently. I could, but that would make things worse. If I scare you, then security comes, and then it's not about a door anymore. It's about trust. Salith's fingers flexed once at her side. It was a small movement, but Evan noticed it. He wondered if he had said something unexpected again. She walked back to the platform and sat. This time, after a moment, she gestured to the space opposite her. Evan hesitated, then pointed to himself, then to the space. Sit, she inclined her head slightly. He moved slowly, crossing the invisible boundary only after she allowed it. He sat where she indicated, mirroring her posture as best he could without making it obvious. They sat facing each other, closer now. Evan could see fine details in her face. Faint lines near her eyes that shifted with expression, subtle changes in skin tone that seemed tied to emotion. She pressed the pendant again, but the air voice did not speak immediately. Instead, Salith spoke. Her voice was soft and clear with an accent that bent the words slightly but did not break them. Human speech is inefficient. Evan blinked, surprised. Then he smiled. Yeah, that's fair. Her eyes narrowed a fraction, not in anger but in evaluation. You still speak. We like to explain ourselves, Evan said. Sometimes too much. She considered this. Your species is known for rapid assumption, rapid action, high error rate. Evan nodded. Also fair. But you, she continued, paused. I realized I was in someone else's space, Evan said. That usually means you slow down. Salith studied him. In my culture, entry without invitation is a violation. Evan's chest tightened. I understand, I'm sorry. She raised one hand, stopping him gently. Apology noted, already measured. Evan relaxed slightly. She looked at the water channel, then back at him. Closing the door is not punishment. I figured that out, Evan said carefully. It's evaluation? Yes, Salith replied. Containment for assessment. Many species fail this moment. Evan swallowed. Fail how? They react, she said simply. They demand, they threaten, they bargain, they attempt escape, they deny fault. Evan thought about that. He could imagine it easily. Panic did strange things to people. And humans, he asked. Salith's eyes lingered on him. Humans are inconsistent. He laughed softly before he could stop himself, then quickly covered his mouth. Sorry, she did not seem offended. You respond with humor under stress. It helps, Evan said. Sometimes, she nodded once. Noted. There was a long pause, but it was not uncomfortable. The silence felt active, like something being built. Salith stood again and walked to the shelf of carved stones. She selected two this time, one she placed back where it had been. The other she brought over and set gently on the floor between them. This represents the threshold, she said. Evan leaned forward slightly, careful not to invade her space. The stone was smooth, with fine etched lines that curved inward. You crossed, she continued. The system records entry, the response is closure, the measure is not time, it is behavior. Evan nodded slowly. So I stay here until you decide what kind of behavior I show. Correct, Salith said. He considered that. What happens after? She hesitated, just a little. That depends. On what? He wondered, but he did not push. She gestured to the stone. Explain, Evan blinked. Explain the stone? No, she said. Explain why you did not attempt to justify yourself with authority. He thought about it. Because I don't have authority here. Even if I did somewhere else, it wouldn't matter in your home. Salith's eyes darkened slightly, reflecting more light. Many claim station authority. Yeah, Evan said. It's easy to hide behind a badge, harder to admit you messed up. She studied him closely. You assume responsibility even when the system misled you. Evan shrugged. The system didn't walk through the door, I did. For the first time, Salith's lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. That response, she said, is statistically rare. Evan felt a strange warmth in his chest, not pride exactly, but relief. I'm glad. She pressed the pendant again. This time the air voice did not speak to Evan, it spoke to the room. Behavior pattern deviation confirmed, subject demonstrates adaptive accountability. Evan raised an eyebrow. Subject, Salith looked at him. You are within a measure, terminology is impersonal. That's okay, Evan said. I've been called worse. Her gaze flicked to him. Explain. Another human thing, he said. Self-deprecation, it reduces tension. She considered this. Your species uses verbal self-reduction as social lubrication. Evan smiled. That might be the nicest way anyone's ever put it. She tilted her head again. Humans create comfort through shared imperfection. That's a good way to say it, Evan agreed. Salith stood and walked toward the door again. Evan's heart rate picked up despite himself. He stayed seated, reminding himself that rushing now would undo everything. She did not open the door. Instead, she touched a panel beside it. A section of the wall shimmered and resolved into a translucent surface like frosted glass. Beyond it, Evan could see the corridor outside. Empty, quiet, no security, no officials. The door is unlocked, Salith said. Evan looked at her sharply. It is. Yes, he did not move. She turned to face him fully. Why do you remain? Evan answered honestly. Because you're still talking to me and because leaving without permission would feel wrong. Her eyes searched his face. Even when escape is available. Yes, Evan said. Because trust isn't tested when it's easy. For a long moment, Salith said nothing. Then she reached up and deactivated the translucent wall. The door seam remained visible but opaque again. You chose restraint over advantage, she said quietly. This is significant. Evan let out a slow breath. I didn't know it was a test. Most tests are not announced, Salith replied. She returned to her place and sat again. This time her posture was different, less formal, slightly relaxed. Tell me, she said, about your work. Evan blinked. My work? Yes, she said. Not your role, your experience. He thought for a moment, then spoke simply. I fix things that don't quite fit anymore. Systems built by many species don't always understand each other. I try to help them talk. Salith listened intently. Do you enjoy it? She asked. Sometimes, Evan said. Mostly when I stop a small mistake from becoming a big one. She considered that. You value prevention. Very much, Evan said. Cleaning up disasters is expensive, emotionally too. Her eyes softened slightly. Your species plans for failure. Evan laughed quietly. We expect it. Salith absorbed this. That expectation does not weaken you? No, Evan said. It reminds us to help each other. Another long pause followed. Then Salith stood, walked to the door, and placed her hand on the control strip. This measure is concluding, she said. Evan's heart jumped. Am I allowed to leave? She looked back at him. Yes. He stood slowly, not rushing. He walked toward the door but stopped a short distance away, waiting. She opened it. The corridor beyond looked exactly as it had before. Blue light. Quiet hum. Evan turned back to her. Thank you for not calling security. She inclined her head. Your presence did not require force. He hesitated, then added, I'll fix the panel outside, make sure no one else walks in by mistake. That would be appropriate, she said. He smiled. I'm glad. He stepped out into the corridor. The door closed behind him, but this time it did not feel final. As Evan knelt by the panel to correct the symbols, his pad chimed softly. A new station notice appeared. It was not a warning. It was a record. Threshold interaction logged, no violation assigned. Evan exhaled, a small laugh escaping him. Inside the room, Salith stood alone, looking at the closed door. She touched the carved stone on the shelf, the one that represented the threshold, and moved it slightly, just a fraction out of its original alignment. For the first time in a long while, the measure had not ended with certainty. And that unsettled her far more than any violation ever had. Evan did not expect the door to open again. He finished fixing the panel with careful hands, double-checking every symbol, every language layer, every access rule. He slowed down on purpose, not because the work required it, but because his thoughts were still inside that quiet room with soft light and running water. When the panel finally showed a clear warning symbol, private residence, invitation required, he leaned back on his heels and exhaled. That should prevent future mistakes, at least this one. He stood, dusted off his knees, and was about to send the maintenance closure report when the door behind him made a soft sound. Not the sharp hiss of an emergency seal, not the flat click of a security override, just a polite chime. Evan turned. The door had opened a narrow amount, enough for light to spill into the corridor, enough for him to see Salith standing inside. She did not gesture for him to enter. She simply looked at him. Evan's first instinct was to apologize again, but he stopped himself. He remembered what she had said, apology already measured. Yes, he asked gently. You corrected the threshold, Salith said. Yes, Evan replied. It won't mislead anyone now. She studied the panel briefly, her eyes moving with precision. Then she looked back at him. You did not report this as cultural contact. Evan hesitated. I reported it as a navigation error with a private residence involved. That's accurate. And incomplete, she said. He nodded. I didn't want to make it bigger than it needed to be. Salith was quiet for a moment. Most beings escalate to protect themselves. I know, Evan said, but nothing bad happened, so it felt wrong to turn it into a problem. She considered this. You protect others by limiting attention. Sometimes, Evan said. Attention can do more harm than the original mistake. Salith stepped closer to the threshold, still not crossing it. You may enter, she said. If you choose, Evan blinked. I thought the measure was over. It was, she said. This is not a measure. Then what is it? He asked. A continuation, Salith replied. Evan looked down at his pad, then at the corridor around them. His shift clock told him he was already behind. There would be messages, questions. Someone would want to know why he took so long on a simple panel fix. He looked back at Salith. "Okay," he said. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him again, but this time the sound felt different, less like containment, more like privacy. Salith walked deeper into the room, and Evan followed at a respectful distance. She did not direct him to sit, so he remained standing until she settled on the platform near the water channel. "This continuation is informal," she said. "You are not required to remain." "I want to," Evan said. Her eyes flicked to him. "Why?" He thought about it. "Because I think what just happened matters, and because you let me choose." She accepted that without comment. She pressed her pendant, but the air voice did not activate. She seemed to decide against it. "You are aware," she said, "that my people observe humans from a distance." "Yes," Evan replied, "most species do. Humans are classified as unstable but adaptable," she continued. "Your societies recover quickly from error but create many errors." Evan smiled faintly. "That's also fair." She watched his expression. "You do not resist negative classification." "No," he said. "Labels don't bother me much. Behavior matters more." Salith tilted her head. "This response appears often in individual humans, but rarely in official representation." Evan nodded. "That sounds right." She gestured toward the water channel. "Your species values flow," he blinked. "Flow? Yes, movement, adjustment, you redirect rather than halt." "I guess so," Evan said. "Stopping things completely usually causes pressure." "Pressure breaks things." Salith's fingers rested lightly on the edge of the platform. "My people value stability." "That's not bad," Evan said quickly. She looked at him. "It has preserved us, but it has also limited us." Evan sensed a shift. This was no longer about him. She continued, "We built systems that prevent violation perfectly. No mistakes, no intrusion, no uncertainty. And no surprises," Evan added softly. She looked at him sharply. "You see this?" "I work with systems," Evan said. "Perfect systems look great on paper. They struggle with reality." Salith considered that. "Reality is messy," Evan smiled. "That's one word for it." She stood and walked toward the carved stones. She selected 3 and placed them on the floor in a line. "This is our structure," she said. "Threshold, evaluation. Resolution." She moved one stone slightly out of alignment. "Your presence disrupted sequence." Evan crouched slightly to look without touching, "because I wasn't supposed to be there." "Yes," she said, "but the system did not break." "It adapted," Evan said. Salith's gaze lingered on him. "Because of your behavior." He shook his head gently. "Because you allowed it to." Her eyes narrowed. "Explain." "You could have ended it at any time," Evan said. "Called security, forced a resolution. You chose to observe instead." She was silent. Evan continued carefully. "You trusted the process enough to let it be imperfect." Salith turned away, considering the stones. "Trust is expensive." "It is," Evan agreed. "But so is control." She looked back at him. "Your species accepts risk as a cost of growth." "Yes," Evan said. "Sometimes too much risk, but we learn." Salith walked back to the platform and sat. "Our growth has slowed." Evan sat as well, mirroring her position. "We have no war," she said. "No internal conflict, no scarcity." "That sounds peaceful," Evan said. "It is," she agreed, "and it is stagnant." Evan did not rush to fill the silence. She continued, "We observe younger species, many destroy themselves, we avoid that fate." "But you also avoid change," Evan said gently. "Yes," she replied. She looked at him directly. "You entered my dwelling by mistake. That should have ended as a record and nothing more." "But it didn't," Evan said. "No," Salith said, "because you responded as if the mistake mattered." Evan frowned slightly. "It did matter. To you," she said, "not to the system." He thought about that. Systems don't feel consequences, people do. Salith's eyes softened again, just a fraction. "That difference is central." She stood and walked to a wall Evan had not noticed before. With a gesture, part of it shifted, revealing a smooth surface covered in faint symbols. Not holograms, etchings. "This is a cultural record," she said. "Access is restricted." Evan immediately stepped back. "I don't need to see it." She paused, then nodded. "Your restraint remains consistent." She did not open it further. Instead, she deactivated the panel and returned to him. "You are unaware," she said, "that my choice not to report you as a violation has consequences." Evan's chest tightened. "Bad ones." "Uncertain ones," Salith replied. "My superiors review anomaly logs. They will see the record." Evan nodded. If that causes trouble for you, I can file something. Clarify, she raised her hand gently. No, he stopped. This continuation is not about correction, she said. It is about understanding. Understanding what? Evan asked. She met his gaze. Why a species with so many errors continues to advance? Evan laughed softly. I don't know if advance is the right word. She waited. Survive, then, he corrected. We survive because we help each other fix mistakes. Salith considered this. Even strangers? Yes, Evan said, especially strangers because they don't owe us anything. Her eyes reflected the light like still water. She spoke again. If another human entered by mistake, would you treat them the same? Evan nodded. I'd probably panic less, but yes, I'd try to help them leave without harm. Even if they violated your space? Yes, Evan said, because intent matters. Salith closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, her expression had changed, not dramatically, but enough. This is the element our models fail to simulate, she said. Intent. Hard to code, Evan said. Yes, she agreed. There was a soft chime from Evan's pad. He glanced at it, then away. I should probably check that. You may, Salith said. He picked it up. A message from station oversight, not a reprimand, a request. Systems anomaly flagged, it read. Please provide context. Evan looked at Salith. This is where things get complicated, she nodded. What will you tell them? Evan thought carefully. That I entered a private residence by mistake, that the resident handled it calmly, that no harm occurred, that the system functioned as designed but human behavior resolved the situation. Salith studied him. You attribute success to behavior, not protocol. Yes, Evan said. She considered this. That will invite further inquiry. I know, Evan said. Are you okay with that? She was silent for a long time. Then she said, yes. Evan blinked. Really? Yes, she repeated. If inquiry occurs, I will participate. He nodded slowly. Then I'll be careful. She looked at him with something like approval. You already are. He sent the report. Moments later, a reply came back. Acknowledged, no further action at this time. Evan exhaled. Salith watched him. Your systems are flexible. Only because people make them so, Evan said. She stood. This continuation has reached a natural pause. Evan stood as well. Will I see you again? She did not answer immediately. Then she said, that depends on whether thresholds remain open. He smiled. I'll try not to walk through the wrong ones. That would be advisable, she said. The door opened. Evan stepped into the corridor, then turned back. Salith, yes. Thank you for trusting me. She inclined her head. Thank you for giving me a reason to. The door closed. Inside, Salith stood alone once more. She looked at the carved stones on the floor, then moved one, just slightly, so the line was no longer perfect. Elsewhere on the station, a quiet flag appeared in a system no human had access to. Not an alert, a question. And for the first time in a very long while, the system did not rush to answer it. The station did not change overnight. Corridors still hummed. Ships still arrived and departed with careful timing. Schedules still slipped, and systems still logged small errors that only people like Evan noticed. From the outside, everything looked the same, but small things had shifted. Evan felt it first in the way his work requests came back with fewer automatic responses and more human-written notes. Questions instead of orders. Curiosity instead of correction. Someone in oversight had read his report more carefully than expected. He kept his head down and did his job. He did not tell anyone about Salith, not because he had been asked to stay silent, but because the story felt unfinished. Like a bridge that had been built halfway across a gap, strong enough to stand on, but not yet meant to be crowded. 3 days passed. On the 4th day, Evan received a message that did not come through standard channels. It did not ping loudly or flash with priority colors. It simply appeared on his pad when he unlocked it. Request for voluntary consultation, cultural systems interface. Location provided. Evan stared at the message for a long moment. Then he smiled. The location was not Salith's residence. It was a neutral observation room near the station's inner curve designed for quiet meetings. No flags, no security detail listed, just a time. He arrived early. The room was simple, smooth walls, a low table, soft light that adjusted itself without drawing attention. Evan sat and waited, hands folded loosely, breathing slow. The door opened without sound. Salith entered. She was dressed differently this time. Still simple but less formal. The band at her neck was present, but the pendant was inactive. You came, she said. You invited me, Evan replied. She inclined her head. Yes. She sat across from him. For a moment neither spoke. Then she said, "This meeting is unofficial." Evan nodded. "Those are usually the important ones." Her lips curved slightly. "You continue to surprise." She placed a small device on the table. It projected nothing. It made no sound. "This room is unrecorded," she said, "by both our systems." Evan raised his eyebrows. "That's rare." "Yes," Salith replied. "It required justification." "And," Evan asked gently, "I cited human influence," she said. He laughed softly. "I'm not sure that's reassuring." "It was sufficient," she said. She studied him for a moment. "Since our last interaction, my report has been reviewed." Evan felt a flicker of concern. "Is that bad?" "No," Salith said. "It is disruptive. That sounds like it could go either way." "Yes," she agreed. She leaned back slightly. "My people do not respond well to ambiguity." "Yet your behavior introduced it without harm." Evan considered that. "Sometimes ambiguity is just space, room to move." She watched his hands as he spoke, as if tracking how his words matched his body. "There is now debate," she continued. "Not about you, about us." Evan blinked. "Us? Our protocols," she said. "Our thresholds, our assumption that violation prevention is superior to violation recovery." Evan nodded slowly. "That's a big conversation." "It is," she said. "It has not occurred in generations." He absorbed that in silence. Salith continued, "You were not selected. You were not tested intentionally. You arrived by mistake." "Story of my life," Evan said lightly. She ignored the joke, but her eyes warmed. "That randomness is significant. Because it wasn't controlled?" Evan asked. "Yes," she said. "And because it still worked." She placed her hand flat on the table. "Your species creates systems that expect error." Evan nodded. "We design for it because we know ourselves." "You assume imperfection," she said. "We eliminate it." "And then when something unexpected happens," Evan said gently, "there's nowhere for it to go." She was quiet. After a moment she said, "A proposal has been made." Evan felt his pulse quicken. "About what?" "About limited exposure," Salith said. "Human behavioral models integrated into cultural interfaces. Observation, dialogue." Evan leaned back slightly. "You want humans involved?" "Yes," she said. "In small ways, carefully." He thought about that. "Some humans would love that, some would ruin it." She nodded. "We are aware," her gaze sharpened. "That is why I requested you." Evan's stomach flipped. "Me?" "You are ordinary," she said. He laughed outright this time. "That's not usually a compliment." "It is," Salith replied. "Extraordinary humans attract attention, authority." "Distortion, you do not." Evan considered that, then nodded. "Okay, that's fair." She continued, "You operate without agenda, you accept fault, you respect boundaries, you remain when escape is possible." He shrugged. "I just try to do the right thing." "That phrase," Salith said, "appears frequently in human records. It is vague." "Yeah," Evan admitted, "but it works." She leaned forward slightly. "We wish to understand why." Evan met her gaze. "Because doing the right thing isn't about rules, it's about people." She watched him closely. "And when rules conflict with people?" "We change the rules," Evan said simply. Salith sat back, absorbing that. "Your species modifies structure around behavior," she said. "Not the reverse." "Most of the time," Evan replied. "When we remember." She looked at him. "You are being asked to assist." He did not answer immediately. "In what way?" "Consultation," Salith said. "Dialogue, presence, not representation." Evan smiled faintly. "You really don't want a diplomat." "No," she agreed. "We want a human." He thought about the station, his job, his routines, the quiet satisfaction of fixing small things before they broke badly. "What happens if I say no?" he asked. "Nothing," Salith said. "The door remains closed. And if I say yes?" "The door remains open," she said. He looked down at the table, then back at her. "I don't know if I'm qualified." "You are," she said, "because you doubt that." He exhaled slowly. "All right." Salith inclined her head. "Then we begin carefully." The following weeks unfolded slowly. Evan did not move offices. He did not receive a new title. He was not announced or celebrated. Instead, small requests began to appear. Invitations to sit in observation rooms, questions asked without judgment. Why do humans apologize even when they are not at fault? Why do humans laugh during stress? Why do humans accept responsibility without authority? Evan answered honestly. Sometimes he said, "I don't know." Sometimes he said, "It depends." Sometimes he told small stories about coworkers, about mistakes fixed quietly, about people choosing kindness because it was easier than cruelty. Salith attended many of these sessions. Sometimes she spoke. Sometimes she only listened. Other members of her species observed from a distance at first, silent, reserved, curious. No one forced conclusions, no one rushed outcomes. The station noticed the change before anyone officially acknowledged it. Signs were adjusted, not stricter. Clearer, panels gained redundancy, not locks. Warnings gained explanations, not threats. A new design principle circulated quietly through engineering channels. Assume good intent. Design for recovery. It did not have a name attached. Evan returned often to the corridor near J19, not because he needed to, but because it reminded him how easily things could have gone wrong. One day, as he checked a routine update, the door opened. Salith stood there. She did not look surprised to see him. "Walk with me," she said. They moved through the corridor together, not touching, not distant either, just two beings sharing space. "You have altered this place," she said. Evan shook his head. "I just fixed a panel." "No," Salith said. "You altered how we respond when panels fail." They stopped at a wide viewport where stars drifted slowly past. "My people fear loss of control," she said quietly. "That's understandable," Evan replied. "But control is not the same as stability," she continued. "We are learning this," he smiled. "So are we over and over," she looked at him. "Humans fail often." "Yes," Evan said, "and yet you persist." "Yes," he said again. She considered the stars. "Perhaps that is the difference." They stood in silence. Later, Evan returned to his work. The station hummed. Systems logged errors, people fixed them. In a quiet room elsewhere, a door remained open, not because it had to be, but because someone had learned that sometimes the most important thing a system could do was trust the person standing on the other side. And somewhere in the station's deep architecture, a simple rule had been rewritten, not in code, but in practice. Mistakes were no longer treated as threats. They were treated as beginnings.